Hello, everyone. Anyone watching, probably in the replay. Welcome to this week's episode of Good Night, everybody. A little bit of a different show. This is a very sobering show, a little more solemn tone, or a lot more solemn tone than you're probably used to. Usually pretty steep in nonsense here, but recent events being what they have been, and me having the grand pleasure of welcoming my guest, Rick Barrett, who has his finger on the pulse always of all the political goings on, much to his detriment. We were talking a little before the show. It's rough, it's draining, it's exhausting to constantly have to cover these things, especially when, Rick, I feel like a lot of the people that do are so spiritually checked out, it probably doesn't affect them in the same way that it would someone like me and you, right? Who understand the reality of it and what's really going on.
It really does test your soul in some aspects, because it's a constant wave after wave, and that's why a lot of people only do 2 or 3, like Tuesday or Wednesday or Tuesday, Thursday, stuff like that, so they're just not constantly inundated with all of it. And I get it. It's just, like I was saying behind I'm just kind of a glutton for punishment on that regard, where trying to do the daily thing is it definitely can be taxing. So it's especially lately.
I had to tune a lot of it out, but just like I was saying before, also you're very gifted in doing, and not only cutting through the nonsense of the spin of all this stuff, but delivering the truth as what is real. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate having you on for these kind of things. When unfortunately they do happen, we've had a sequence of events recently that need to be talked about, is because, being fellow Catholics, we can discuss these things through the only two lenses that really matter, which is the spiritual and the theological. Right? Ultimately, that's what's missed a lot. My angle usually is coming at those things, coming at entertainment through those lenses, because I feel like a lot of people are useless in that regard too. But with you, we can do it for the actual news. But it gets missed all the time. People are talking about secular allegiances as if that really still matters. The party lines have blurred almost completely, right, at this point. But still, we want to adhere to even people that are rightfully upset with Trump lately.
Yep.
When a tragedy like this happens, they're looking to him again as some kind of savior because he said flowery words about Charlie Kirk, right? So it's like it's that kind of desperation, the same thing that happens that I've been talking about for a long time back in our days when we used to work together on Catholic radio, where I would say, people are so desperate for a hero that they'll cling to anyone that gives them a bone, right? So whether it's in the tech spaces, Elon Musk is the new tech god and we love Elon Musk, or whether it's Trump in politics, or whether it's an actor that says, I love Jesus, when what's his name? Star-Lord.
Oh, Chris Pratt.
Right. Chris Pratt, right? Came out and said, I love Jesus, I'm a Christian. Everybody, Catholic and otherwise, went crazy. Oh, that's our guy, Meanwhile, he's in Marvel movies blaspheming, like we write that up because we're so desperate for someone to be on our side, someone of substance to be on our side, because we've been so downtrodden all the time. It's the same kind of thing that's going on now. Anyone now that's saying something nice and flowery about Charlie Kirk is all of a sudden on the right side, even if we were, hating their guts 2 days ago. What do you think about this? This is a tremendous tragedy. It's the shock is still kind of sinking, and I'm still kind of not getting over it, because but the reality almost hasn't hit yet. Are we in an era where political assassinations have been normalized?
So it's an interesting question, and you spoke about something just now. We watched this happen in real time in HD, and then we had the announcement, and then we had the flood of analysis that X and YouTube gives, and now we're into the second day, and since the FBI has completely stunk the bed on this thing, people are starting to come up with theories and analysis, and the internet X is full of all kinds of stuff, and it's just trying to get answers. And yesterday, the first thing I said is I was not a fan of Charlie Kirk. I was
me neither.
One of the biggest people who spoke out against T Pusa and all of the things that they do and the way they try to the T Pusa girl joke was around for a reason. But I think the tragedy of a 31-year-old man,
right,
father of 2, and a real person who breathed and had a life outside of the political digital space, because the internet, TikTok and Instagram and Twitter has turned everybody into a reel. Oh, I know that
Yes.
guy from a reel. I know that guy he's the real guy. He's the guy who has a weird smile. He's the guy who debates abortion or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And we have become so detached through the screens that you can have people, and I made this point in my show just now, the left, the Marxists, progressives, communists, whatever you want to call them, they have so bubbled into this fantasy of being like the rebels in Star Wars or some kind of thing. They're fighting against the empire, that yay, this guy's dead. It's like that's a real person, man. That's like I know you didn't like him, but you people were crying over George Floyd 5 years ago, and now at
Yeah.
this time you are doing TikTok dances celebrating the murder of somebody because he had the gall to disagree with you. And that's just it is causing the right, because if you look at it, you listen to a lot of these commentators on the right, it sounds like Kirk was the glue that held that whole right wing together,
Yeah,
the
he was becoming that, sure.
space and all that. So it's really the anger and just being lost and looking for something, and that's where they're kind of looking to Trump and the things that he's saying, and they're getting given the Medal of Freedom, which is a nice act, and it's a nice thing
Oh, I
for
hadn't
him.
heard that. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to award him the Medal of Freedom sometime next week.
Mm.
So, and I think it's interesting, Chris, that culturally we can speak to this, and I can bring you into this. This is your wheelhouse. People that are not into politics, like my wife is not into politics, and she texted me on Wednesday, Charlie Kirk was shot.
Yeah.
And it's just one of these things. The Yankees have been doing,
That was surprising.
I'm getting back into NASCAR. There's a huge on one of the Bristol screens, Charlie Kirk's name's all over that. You got NFL quarterbacks donating to the GoFundMe and stating that they're doing so. You got the quarterback for the Texans who's like, we should all have a moment of silence for this guy. And
Mhm.
it's really crazy how we all kind of thought he was just like a meme on the conservative side. He's Charlie Kirk with the
Right.
T-Boost stuff, but he really did saturate through the culture. And I guess that's really more of a mark at how politics is the dominant force within our union right now, and within our supposed culture. Our culture is nothing more but politics.
It absolutely is. It revolves around everything, and especially in the world where, I mean, let's be honest, the church has abdicated any serious
100%.
cultural influence in the world, especially in the arts, especially in media. And it's the media, something you said there about, mentioning George Floyd, and the media certainly has a tendency to humanize the inhuman and degrade those who are actual people. So in the case of Kirk, you see a lot of these news outlets, they can't put up a headline about him without some snide remark buried in it.
Yep.
It can't just be, Charlie Kirk speaker, Charlie Kirk influential, whatever. It has to be like Charlie Kirk who helped Trump get elected, and you know what they mean by that, who
Firebrand right wing commentator or whatever.
Right wing commentator. Some go so far as to say fascist. That word means nothing. The supreme irony is like all these people that are talking about fascism and communism, and they love communism and they hate fascism, and they don't know what either one of those things means. And the people the people that just plug these words into whoever they dislike, they're either a Nazi or a fascist, has permeated everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting that Kirk, for all we may have disagreed with him on, what I do admire a lot about him is he was on the front lines. I mean, let's be serious. Academia is the front line for progressive thought. I mean, I'm using the word thought very loosely there. Exactly, in air quotes. And he was willing to go and engage because he recognized that a lot of these kids are misled, they're misguided, they're ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are evil, but the vast majority, the real evil is coming from the professors, from the academics, from the higher up. These kids are stupid and they don't know anything, and they're being filled with garbage by garbage people.
Mm-hmm.
But Kirk said over and over again, there's a very famous reel, to go back to reels, going around where somebody asked him, why are you doing this? He said, because when we stop talking, that's when violence happens, because we see the other side as nothing but evil. They're not human anymore. And that's exactly what they did to him. they 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 made him seem like nothing but the figurehead for everything they hated. I've seen all kinds of accusations about him over the last couple of days that I've never seen evidence for. Racist, I don't know where they get that
Yeah.
from. Nazi, I mean, the guy was super pro-Israel. I don't see how you make the case that he's a Nazi.
He was really milquetoast in a lot of
Yes,
his beliefs. He was the moderate Republican in every
exactly.
way, shape, and form.
Yeah, somebody said that. Somebody said Charlie Kirk was the moderate position, but
Mhm.
they meant it in a way. In other words, like, okay, you couldn't let Charlie exist. Now you're going to get Fuentes or like whoever, which is what's going to happen. Is the further ascendancy of someone like Nick Fuentes, because this is very radicalizing. Someone described it as the 9/11 of Zoomers, right? This is their
Mm.
9/11 basically for any politically minded Zoomers. Um, and that tracks, right?
Yep.
Like this is very, very radicalizing, very polarizing, not polarizing. It's very uniting actually,
Yeah.
because people that like we're sitting here right now saying decently good things about Charlie Kirk, who we had serious disagreements with. No matter what, though, the difference between the superfluous terms left and right is like we don't want the guy to die because we disagree with positions that he held, right? How,
Mhm.
how are you seeing this? Just to change track a little bit here, how are you seeing the response as far as the way people believe that this occurred? Because I've seen everything from it was a lone tranny maniac. I've seen people say, people that should know better, this is an impossible shot, right? this is like Oswald times 10. This is no one can make this shot.
Jason Bourne. Jason Bourne had to do
This is Jason Bourne. This is Winter Soldier type stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
so being someone who was very well versed in firearms knowledge, what is your take from in the just the pragmatic sense about those things? What is the nature of a shot like this? How difficult is it? From what we know about supposedly where this person was, how hard is this to pull off once and for all for people to hear?
So the dominant opinion from the gun tube gun X community, and I went back and forth with a couple people on this today.
I'm sure
The weapon is supposedly a 30-06 Mauser, which is a bolt action rifle. It's a heavy bolt action rifle. The 30-06 round is a massive, heavy round. It's a kind of rifle and round that kids learn on hunting when they go hunting with their dads. And this was supposedly a 200 yard, somewhere between like 150 to 200 yard shot. And 200 yards with a good modern scope. And it looked like pictures from the scene. They were able to lie prone, which is flat,
right.
lying prone, taking your time. It's a shot that anybody can be taught to make with about maybe a day's worth of work on it.
Is that it? Just a day's work of training is all it would take for somebody to.
Yeah, I mean,
so this is nothing. This is nothing.
Nothing. The Marines and the Army guys, they're like qualifying for the military doesn't start until 300. So the fact that it's a shot that anybody can essentially make, and the rifle is nice and heavy to absorb recoil. The round is a generally flatter shooting round than the 5.56. Real quick, ballistically, when the bullet leaves the barrel or the muzzle, eventually it will start to curve. If you look at any chart, there's a curvature on them. Depending on far out, the farther it out, the more it curves. 5.56 is more of a curved round. It'll drop a lot quicker because it's relatively lighter to the 308. The 308 is a lot heavier, so it's a lot more flat shooting. Overall, anybody who's trying to say this is like a sniper pro shot is just somebody who's trying to get ahead and get views and clicks and say all these kinds of things. In the context of the shot, unfortunately, it did kill a man, but it's not something that requires a special set of skills. Somebody can buy this, go to the range over a weekend and get comfortable enough to do it, because the scope's a modern scope's doing a lot of the work for you.
A lot of the heavy lifting is the scope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The problem is, Rick, and you know this well, is people's desire for clicks far outweighs their fear of sounding stupid, especially because they know that the vast majority of their audience is probably also stupid and they will agree with whatever they say. The next thing I want to talk to you about, and I know we're pressed for time. Thank you again for coming on in between two of your other shows that you're doing. You're a busy guy. The other thing I want to talk to you about is this notion of now enacting the what is often the left wing's tactic of mass cancelization for everyone who is being smug about or cheering on the fact that Charlie was murdered. Father, I don't know if I'm supposed to call him father, but Calvin Robinson,
Mhm.
who I'm not clear on exactly what he is. Maybe you
Yeah.
know more than I do about that. But
Mm,
he is even spearheading this idea of archiving screenshots. Him and the Hodge twins, I
mhm.
think the real leaders on this, just by the nature of the size of their followings. We're going to catalog even Joey Salads. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
He set up a website where he will take submissions, he said, for screenshots of everyone that is cheering on the fact that Charlie was murdered, and we're going to get them all canceled. Two
Mhm.
things I want to ask you. One, what are your feelings on that as a tactic? Two, is there any chance of this being effective?
I think that the both great questions. I think they could be answered with the same response. Is that this comes from a place of uh, uh, desperation for some kind of justice,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because the right is, at least the right online, is used to seeing things happen to us, promises being made that swift action will be taken, and then nothing really happens. And we're seeing that now with the fact that the FBI is completely dropping this thing super as hard as one can. And so the right is desperate, especially with somebody that a lot of them revered, and I say that just, as a word, they revered Charlie Kirk, and they liked him and they respected him, and they want essentially vigilante justice in the cyberspace, to
Right.
because a they want something, they want to excise some of this anger and frustration, and B, they're used to this game being played on them. Now it's
Yes.
worked a little bit. It's worked a little bit. A lot, people have lost their jobs and things like that. And I think that is just a byproduct. It's going to happen on both sides. It's a part of the normal now for
Yeah.
online discourse. If you don't have a job that is conservative based, or your boss is pretty cool, or you're not independent as an entrepreneur, that you can be put at risk for stuff like that.
Right.
So it is a fear tactic, is a tactic that can be used by both sides. And I'm not surprised by it, especially with something of this magnitude. The bloodlust from the right now is pretty high, because they just want to see something happen. They don't want this to be another, like, we haven't heard anything from the Trump shooting from Butler, Pennsylvania.
No.
Like, nothing's
Nothing.
happened from that. We thought
No.
Trump would certainly want to do something with that. No, we got nothing from that. And every time something happens to a right winger, it's just brushed off like, oh, you guys are fine, whatever. And
That's
so
the
I think
media is so
this is
controlled by
hmm?
the opposite side that we're not going to hear about it, even if something, unless it's something major and that cannot be impossible for it to be stifled. But Rick, my problem with this is one of my problems anyway is just in a purely pragmatic sense. All these people that are calling for this are acting like mass firings of these people is axiomatic. So what I don't understand is why they assume that when a lot of these people are employed at institutions who echo the same sentiment of their employees. So as you know very well, local school boards are rife with liberals, right? Terrible liberals, if not straight up, transvestites, pro LGBT, alphabet people, you name it. Academia, forget about it. A lot of these big corporations, unless they feel a real hurt in the checkbook, they're not going to care, right? Because they echo a lot of the same sentiments. I'm sure a lot of people on these boards are perfectly happy that Charlie was murdered. Why do you think these people, that is it just what you said, that they're so hungry for it that they just disregard the reality of the fact that a lot of these employers are probably not, unless I'm wrong. I mean, do you think that a lot of these employers are going to care about this kind of thing and just start massively firing people in these, higher learning institutions and corporate workforces? What do you think?
I think I think the real desperation out of that is to kind of send a message like, hey, we're not going to lie down anymore. We're
Yeah.
going to at least quote unquote fight back, even if they only get a couple scalps, which they're, some websites have got, they, a couple people have lost their jobs and been fired and things like that. They just want to show like, hey, kind of like in regards to what happened when Roseanne Barr was fired, and then the right
Mhm.
successfully got James Gunn fired, kind of like this tit for tat mentality. Like, you can't push us around because we'll take one of yours in that regard. And I think that's just, once again, down to the fact that discourse is dead within the political scale, in that law enforcement, because it's been infiltrated by an ideology that is against 50% of the country, and is not neutral, is stepping back and kind of allowing all of this to happen, to the point where people feel like they have to do something.
Yeah. And all this is it's more obvious to Catholics like you and I, because I'm sure you're very well aware of Bella Dodd in what was that? Was that the 60s that she came out and testified and said that the plan of the communists is to and the atheists is to infiltrate all your institutions, and they're
Oh.
playing the long game. She was converted by Bishop Sheen.
Mhm.
Can't remember when this was, 70s maybe. But Bella Dodd says she laid out, this is their playbook, because she had been one of them. She had been a member of the Communist Party, and I think she was sent here to be part of the infiltration. And she laid it all out, and nothing happened. Nobody cared. I think maybe they regarded her as a little wacky, a conspiracy theorist even then. But she was absolutely right. This is the plan that they enacted. It's been hugely successful. I don't think she even knew to the extent that this would happen, and so we're not as surprised probably as a lot of people are. We're dismayed, obviously. We don't want evil to win, but it's not like I'm not shocked by any of this anymore. By the way things are covered, by the way that academia is. I'm so glad that I didn't end up going to an institution of so-called higher learning.
Mhm.
When I was on the path to do that, and screwed it up. And in hindsight, maybe not such a terrible thing, because who knows? I might have been brainwashed myself more than
Yeah.
I was just hanging out in on the streets of Long Island, the mean streets of Long Island,
The mean
of
streets
Suffolk
of Long
County,
Island.
the school of hard knocks at
That's right.
Suffolk. Taking the train to Montauk, that'll toughen you up real fast.
Those
But
Long Islanders.
yeah, but it doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is the rapidity of things that are happening right now. Now, today apparently there's also a shooting at a naval academy. Do you have any details on that? But that's
So there was
still unfolding, right?
at this point, the whole thing at the Naval Academy's kind of been stopped for a while. There was
Okay, that's good.
because the shooter was mixed with law enforcement, but it looks like it's been lifted at this point. So this is 21 minutes ago. No active shooter. Nobody was injured. So it's
Oh,
pretty much
thank
been
God for that.
everybody's in stable condition and so forth. And it seems like chaos is trying to be fomented
Mm.
now,
Oh
because
yeah.
that's the only thing the Marxist, progressive, leftist, whatever you want to call them, have left. And
Mm-hmm.
that is to just cause chaos. Whether it's with the Charlie Kirk thing, there was supposedly an incident at UMass Boston
Oh,
earlier today. There's supposed to be one, but it was a fake. And we had that, and then it's generally just to make the general public uncomfortable. I have a listener on my show who said a very poignant thing, where he said the assassinations of the 60s led to the turmoil of the 70s.
yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
it seems like we may be just straight lining back to something like that, because the left, out of power and desperate, or the Marxist progressive, the gay race communists, if you want to call them that, they're a wounded animal. If you look at it from a political sense, the culture has
Mm.
shifted enough away from them that this is the next option for them, right? Violence is the next option for them.
Yeah.
So it does seem that they are trying to create and sow as much chaos and much instability to make people afraid and to make people uncomfortable. And the problem with that, Chris, is that is going to lead to, and we're starting to see it, more calls for the feds to come in and fix things, like
Mm.
militarization of Chicago and all these other places, which is a big,
Terrible idea.
big no. But
People were happy, Rick, that Trump was going to bring in the national. I said, this is a terrible idea. What are you talking about? This is
no, you have
horrible.
right wing commentators cheering it on,
Cheering it
saying
on
that
like
it has
crazy.
to happen.
Because anything our guy does, right, is good. But they don't understand that they're setting the precedent for the other guy to do it in the future. because
Yeah.
they're playing roulette with who gets into office. So next time it's somebody else's turn. It's the left's turn.
Even if
They'll
it's
get
eight,
in.
even if you get Vance for 8 years, eventually the pendulum swings back,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah. And
it's
hard.
yeah, and it'll swing hard, and people are always like, I can't believe this happened, and it's like, well, no, we told you it was gonna, we told you it was gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
We didn't like it when Obama did it, but
nope,
when Trump does it, that's good.
yeah,
Tell me how that works.
it's saving the republic.
Yeah, exactly. And just like this all started with this specific issue kind of all started with 9/11, ironically enough, since it is 9/11, and the Patriot Act, right? We were so happy to please take our freedom, just protect us from these terrible terrorists that obviously did this thing. And it's been downhill ever since as far as
And
personal
then
freedoms go.
after the Annunciation tragedy, the DOJ came out and said, we're looking to find ways to restrict troons from owning firearms. And
Right.
Catholics and people on the right were telling me this is a great idea, and I'm ripping my hair out like, no. I almost became like the defender of the troons online, because I'm like, I don't like them, but
Mm,
the solution is not to give the government more power to restrict who
no.
gets what, because the Blaze just reported last week that the FBI is still going after Latin mass Catholics,
Yeah, of
and
course.
they're still going after extremists on the right. And it's mind-boggling how stupid people get when their guy is in office, how they
It
think
is, isn't it?
everything's going to be fine.
It's very disheartening because this is why we need to be. I mean, this is going to sound like empty platitudes, but it's true. This is why people need to be grounded in the faith, in the
Mhm.
truth, right? Because then you see none of these other things as absolutes. There's only one absolute, and anything that sways outside of the realm of those things is, I mean, ephemera at best, and spiritually problematic. I mean, everything ultimately is a spiritual problem, right?
Yep.
Everything that happens is stemming from the spiritual reality. Ontologically, we exist in a world which is governed by the spiritual. So you're either being governed by the diabolical or by the angelic, and there's no middle ground. There's no, as much as Hollywood wants to present gray morality and they love anti-heroes and all that stuff, that is not reality. There's
No.
no such thing. It's one or the other, and you have to choose a side. And people these days do not want to choose a side, or they want to choose a side and then just like slam their canines into it and hold on for all it's worth, no matter what the person in charge on their side does, even if it's completely against their ethics in a normal world, because it's their guy and they've laid down that concrete position that they're going to abide by him or her no matter what. They're kind of on the hook for doing so, and they don't want to be seen as traitors or whatever. But if you don't adhere to any of that stuff and you're just following Christ and his church, right, those principles don't change. They don't waver. They stay the same. You can use that very easily to help you sort out who is in the right and who is in the wrong, no matter what the party.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
even people that are good Catholics aren't doing that, right? They get sucked into this political narrative, and then they're swept away from the truth that is the bedrock. You
They
see that a lot,
compromise. They end up compromising a
right?
lot of their beliefs in order to be on whatever team they feel they need to be on, and it's on the right and it's on the left, and
Yeah,
it's sad to see in that regard. And like with this whole thing with the Charlie Kirk,
yeah,
I had a guy in my chat, good guy, he watches my show all the time, and I kept saying, hey man, you guys talking about lashing out, remember, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
mm,
And one guy was like, there's good vengeance. And I said, there's one or the other. He's like, St. Thomas Aquinas would disagree. And my simple response to these guys is my email is barrettbrief@gmail.com. Send me it.
yeah,
Let me
exactly.
see it. Let me read it. And so that way,
Yeah,
we can go there. But people, and I'm not trying to blast him. He's a good dude.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that people will, and I can't say that I'm not outside this, Chris. I'm a human being. I've probably done
Oh,
this as
sure.
well,
Yeah,
where we manipulate our own beliefs at times to kind of try to litigate the faith. Like, oh well, this is okay, and we've all litigated at one point or
oh
another,
yeah. Mhm.
and that's a problem that we all have to deal with.
People are equating anger with vengeance, I think, and
Mm,
Aquinas and the scriptures do say it's good to be angry. But Paul says, be angry and sin not. And people like to leave off that that end
Yeah.
part, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So many of those verses they like to just slice them right in half. First part sounds good, fits with what I want to do. Second part would just leave that off a little bit. You know, make themselves Protestants.
It's the Corinthians, right? It's First
Yeah.
Corinthians all over again.
Oh yeah.
But
But before I know you got to go, but really quickly we need to touch on because and so much has happened. We had that terrible stabbing of that young girl from Ukraine, right?
mhm.
Seemingly random act of seems to me racially
Violence.
motivated violence, right? And we had the school shooting, the Catholic school, days before that, right?
Yeah.
Only what
Yep.
what first of all, what is going on? Your quick take, why is all this happening? Is it just the evil in the world? That's my contention. Is it just like the devil is unleashed? This is the period of time where he has excessive power. But also, have we had any updates on any of that? Have these people been brought to justice, or are we just we're moved on to the next thing now?
So the Annunciation one, since the person exited by themselves,
Oh, was that
there's
right? Okay.
really, yeah,
This is how out of touch I am with all this stuff that I didn't even know that.
yeah, I believe he exited himself. So
Okay.
there's not really much to go on that one besides the, the book and all the manifesto and that people were looking at. As far as Rena Zadruska, I think that's her name.
Yeah, I think so.
She is just an example of how liberal feminism, along with gay race communism, has destroyed the patriarchy in every way, shape, and form on multiple levels. And whether it's justice, whether it is the idea of being rightly ordered, as far as roles in society, there's a lot of stuff that because we've all seen the picture of her cowering
Yeah,
in her last moments in life, and any red-blooded man, black, white, Hispanic, that's somebody, and could be at any time in the right situation. And it's really a call to how can we reestablish the correct roles in society, and that is a patriarchal role. It is a patriarchal society does this because in that kind of a society, men are not allowed to act in these ways without
right.
swift justice being put upon them.
Yeah,
In the role of women, it's defined enough that they are protected and preserved, so they can flourish as well. Now, patriarchy has been painted as a negative thing because they don't want people to go back to it, and it's the destruction of the patriarchy at the foundation of Western civilization. And you can go hand in hand with the abdication of that by the Catholic Church, that has led to hundreds of thousands of arenas, or I'm sorry, whatever her name is, happening across these United States every day.
it's really true, and this includes women's right to vote, right? I mean, women vote terribly.
They don't. They
Statistically
do not
speaking,
exercise. They do not do well for themselves. They don't
no,
make a great case.
they don't do well for us is the problem, and
Yeah.
they shouldn't. But it's everything about the even them being in the workforce. I mean, this is all terrible. These are terrible things for society.
Mm-hmm.
Should be self-evident at this point, but people still argue the point. And then when they get in the workforce and then just complain, I'm not making as much money, I can't do this. That old myth. So it's like, okay, maybe you shouldn't be working.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be home.
They've been poisoned.
They've been poisoned.
So it's not even, you can't even blame Gen Z and Gen Alpha for these, or even millennials to an extent, because they were poisoned. And not to throw it on boomers and Gen X, but they didn't shield us. They didn't shield us from that.
No.
So it's a failure on multiple generations and multiple levels.
Yeah, that's very true. It's been a steady degradation since since about 2,000 years ago, actually, I guess.
About right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I know you got to get on to News from the Pew. Everyone should tune into News from the Pew. I'm hoping I'll be on News from the Pew at some point.
We're gonna get you on there.
And I really appreciate you coming on. It was short notice, but so much going on. I mean, I want to dive into this even more. I'll have to have you back. And also, I want to ask you this on the air and put you on the spot. But I'm planning on doing a with Chris Lewis and some other people. Chris has been Chris Lewis, Barrett, his Catholic Illustration. Yep. He's been having some really great takes. He's been on here several times with the problem of AI. And I watched Tucker Carlson's interview with we could talk about Tucker another time, but when he's on, he's on. I watched his interview with Sam Altman, the progenitor of along with Elon Musk of ChatGPT and OpenAI, right?
Mm-hmm.
An open secularist secular Jew. running one of the most powerful machines in the world, probably arguably at this point. And his interview did not encourage me, Rick. So I would love to have you on, along with Chris and some other people, to talk about this rising problem of AI, what the limits are with it. If you'd be interested and if you'd be willing, how it affects the
Absolutely.
news,
Yeah,
how
I'm
it affects
interested. I
media.
talk about AI all the time.
I know you do.
So,
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
that would be great. We'll set that up sometime in the future. We'll get Chris Lewis and just a couple other people. That'd be great. Well, it's a short stream today. For anyone that did watch, thank you so much. Please like and share and subscribe. Mostly, this is not the show. Mostly, the show is pretty stupid. But but today, it didn't seem like a good day to be laughing at anything. So not too much anyway. But we'll return to our stupidness, I'm sure, next week. Stephen Groen, my sidekick, will be back, I think. We may run a pre-taped episode next week. We'll see what happens. It's total chaos, Rick. There's no professionalism here whatsoever. You're the only professionalism we get when you come on is professional. But again, thanks for everyone for watching. And please share this with people if you're watching the replay. And otherwise, whatever. God bless you all. Be safe out there. And good night, everybody.
Night.